Okay.
Okay,
Also,
okay. So
Yeah.
I should start?
Yeah.
Well, my earliest memory was when I was 4 years old. And I think I'd have to qualify myself as a big show-off. Because first thing was that our milk was delivered by the Abbott Milk Company, and he had a horse and wagon, and I stood under the horse.
You stood under it?
I stood under the horse, I remember that. That did not go well with my mother when my grandmother told her about it that night. And the second memory was when I climbed out the back window on the third floor, and I walked across the roof. And I sat on the roof with my legs dangling over the side. That did not go well with my mother.
Mm-hmm. How old were you when you were doing
I
that?
was about 4.
Oh.
The other memory I had was I was very friendly with all the neighbors. And I would walk up and down the street, ring the doorbell, they would invite me in, and I would tell them everything that happened at home that night. I did differentiate between those things that were right to tell and those that were not.
So, yeah. And what was the thing? Your father used to stay up. He would always hear Aunt Helena when she would come in, or
Oh, that was much later.
yeah.
When I was when I was very young, if I wanted a doll, I got up before my father got up, and I waited until he came downstairs, and I would ask him to bring me home a doll that night, and that night I brought home a doll. So I had a concept of my place in the world, and my real world, and the place that I thought I had.
Yeah.
You just don't get things by just asking for it. And that was rather hard on me, but I survived.
Yep. Well, nowadays, I think kids do. That is how it operates.
Hey, what?
That is how it operates with kids now. If they want something, they ask their parents, and then they immediately think that
Yes.
they're gonna.
But I knew to ask my father, because my father did not know how to say no to my sister Yola, Helena, or to me.
Mm-hmm.
I have a brother, but I think he would say his experiences were different.
And let me just adjust this. Okay. All right. So, Dad, would you like tell us your story?
my story took place when I guess I was about 6 years old. We lived in Jersey City on, at that time it was called Hudson Boulevard, now it's Kennedy Boulevard. After, when Kennedy died, everybody went sentimental and named everything that used to have another name.
Every
They named
street,
it Kennedy something.
Or Martin Luther King
Yeah, that happened
Boulevard?
too.
Yes.
Anyhow, Emma and we lived over a store. My father and granddad had a store down below, which was an ice cream parlor in part, a cigar store where he had a lot of business, a candy store for penny candy, and in winter he'd have, at Christmas time, he'd have a big load of toys, various toys, and the place was always loaded with people. And this was especially an especially good sight because across the street was a big public school, number 5 school, where I eventually started. So they went to the movies quite a bit. We didn't even have radio, let alone television. We didn't get radio until a few years later. My uncle got it at first, Uncle Bill, and then we would run up to his house at 7 or 7:30, I don't remember quite when, to listen to Amos and Andy on his radio. Anyhow, getting back to the store, my mother and father would go to the movies quite a bit. They loved the movies. And this went on always as far back as I can remember and as far forward. Who was home? The 4 kids. I was about 6. My brother would have been 11 and a half, so he was our sitter, so-called, but he wasn't called a sitter, and he wasn't, but they didn't even say, Harold, you're in charge. It would just go.
He took charge.
And don't fight. Well, that was Harold's chance. He decided the greatest fun in the world was scaring his siblings. Babe was an infant, and Lila was a little girl of about 3, and I was, as I say, around 6. So he came in and he said, something's happening to me. My head is disappearing. And he pulled his sweater slowly over his head. He had a red sweater, a bright, I can remember that very bright red sweater. And he finally, and all this to us shrieking in terror. We thought, I don't know how we could have been so stupid as to take it as real, but we thought it was real.
At that age, it must have been terrifying. Yeah.
And then he'd say, okay, my head is coming back, and that was just as scary when it emerged from his sweater again. And that's a typical little episode when Harold was left in charge.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, I have another one.
Yeah.
My best girlfriend was Miriam Lichtenstein. Miriam lived across the street from us, and we were so close that we'd go to bed at the same time. And if we took off our underwear, we'd yell, we're taking off our underwear, and so on and so forth. And when we met in school, we never said a word to each other. It was as though we didn't know each other. Now, Sunday afternoons, people would promenade on the sidewalk. It was a wide sidewalk across the street from the park. Miriam and I used to go out and pretend that we fell. And everyone ignored us, except this elderly couple. I can still see them. They were tall and thin and wore black clothing. And they bent down and said, oh, you poor dears, are you all right? Do you want us to call your mother? No, we're all right. We stood up and we looked at each other and we said, they're crazy. So we used to go to Wildwood during the summer, and Wildwood was a little village. And Miriam's mother and my mother were good neighbors, but they weren't friends.
Yeah.
So Mrs. Lichtenstein decided that the mothers would surprise Miriam and me and go down to the shore. And I was sitting on our porch and I looked across the street and I saw Miriam. Well, we didn't say anything to each other. We just went together on the boardwalk, and we thought we would go through that falling routine, but they had wooden boards, so we couldn't do that. And we didn't discuss it, but I remember that for the rest of the summer, Miriam and I, and Yola and Helena, would play Parcheesi. And Yola
that's where you used to
yes,
get
and
Parcheesi from.
Yola would block us. And we used to be furious
She
about
still
that.
does.
And
She still does, 70 years, 80 years
Yes,
later.
she still does. And eventually she had to break the block, and she always lost.
Yeah. She would lose, but then she disrupted all the other
Yeah,
strategies. Yeah. Does she do that intentionally? The blockades? Oh.
That's a strategy.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if that was a strategy or she just wasn't
It's a
aware.
strategy. It's
Yeah.
not to win,
Yeah.
but to foil.
Disrupt. Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing, we used to have we'd buy the spools, these little spools, where you could, and we'd get wool, and we were
Oh, a
supposed,
darn. A drindle?
a drindle.
Oh, a dreidel.
A
A
dreidel.
dreidel? Not a
No,
dreidel?
Not a dreidel.
I think it
Sounds
was a
like a
dreidel.
dreidel, but it's not a spinner.
Oh.
It's for weaving a rope.
And all
Oh.
summer long, we would sit on the porch and knit that thing, and the ball became very, very large, but we never sewed it together. But the fun was in the process.
Yeah. Nice. Kind of like knitting is today.
Yeah.
Did you have those too?
Yeah, we had them too, and I did them too. Everybody was doing them. They were ropes. You'd make a rope. What you did with it, we never did anything with the rope. We just see how long we could get it. But I guess the girls wound it up, and some of them sewed it together and made a little coaster of some sort.
Yeah.
You know.
I have one other little story.
Sure.
Faye Shabro came to live with her grandmother, and they were a very wealthy family. And her mother was killed in an automobile accident, and her father had sutures all across his forehead.
Was this a friend of yours?
Yeah,
Oh.
yes, not as nearly so close as Miriam Lichtenstein.
Mm-hmm.
And every night, Faye's father would take her and her brother to Ben-Hur's ice cream store, and Faye would get a banana split, and so I was in a little bit of conflict there.
So, boy, that must have been tough for him to raise. So he raised the two kids alone then, huh?
Well, he moved back, and the grandparents.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Grandparents were much, much more involved in the actual household, I
Well,
think.
we lived in a neighborhood where it seemed that all my mother's cousins, sisters, my mother's sister, all the close relatives lived. And that was a very secure feeling for children.
Oh, it must have been great.
I remember the Kramers lived across the street from us. And then a few blocks away, my cousin Min lived with her mother, cousin Shava. And they made the best chocolate cake ever. And I would go there once a week and have chocolate cake there.
Mm-hmm.
My Aunt Reba lived, who was my mother's sister, lived 3 or 4 blocks away.
Oh, with their 3 cousins?
Yes, I had 3 cousins. And my Aunt Reba made the best lemon meringue pie. And that's the memory that children have,
Yeah.
you see.
Yeah.
We had something of the same when I lived in Jersey City. We could walk to my Uncle Barney's house. That was my granddad's brother, Barney, and Tante Zila, his wife, who was a wonderful woman, just so gentle and understanding and kind, and play with my cousins, who were 3 girls, Rosie, Emily, and Gertie. I'm not sure I've got that. Yeah, Gertie, Emily, the oldest one, Gertie, and the youngest one, Rosie, who was sort of about my age, and we played together. And then there was my daddy's granddad's other brother, Uncle Sam. I should say that Tante Zila and Uncle Barney were always at the verge of poverty. And I remember sometimes we'd sleep over there, and the beds always smelled of something we used to call it pishach, which is urine. And somebody was a bedwetter in that family.
Oh,
I should mention that I had an older cousin, the three girls, and then my cousin Sidney, who was the oldest one, but he had already moved away.
was he a sibling of the three girls?
Of the three girls,
Oh,
they were all my first cousins. And then we had my Uncle Sam, who was married. He was quite affluent, and he was also in walking distance, in fact closer.
How about your cousin Irene? Who was she?
Cousin Irene was, she was my Uncle Morris's daughter.
Oh, on your mother's side.
His wife was Joan, and they lived in Stelton, New Jersey, so that
Mhm.
was a train trip away.
Yeah.
We didn't see them much. And at that time, my grandfather, Joseph Wolfson, lived in Philadelphia, and we were in Jersey City, so it was almost 100 miles. It seemed to be
Oh.
100 miles, but it
Yeah.
couldn't have been that far. However, I think maybe
Yeah.
it was 30 and 60. Yeah, close, pushing 90-something miles.
Is he the buried at the Bethlehem that cemetery in Philly that we went to?
He's buried at the old one.
The old one, yeah.
Yes, not this new one where Grandma
Right,
Sophie
yeah.
is buried.
Because I remember at the old one you
Yes, that's the one.
had, okay.
They're buried there, yes.
I see.
And anyhow, we used to walk over to visit them. And when I visited
Mhm.
my Uncle Barney, my Uncle Sam, who was the affluent one, and they had a house with a driveway, a long driveway and a lawn. Ooh, that was wealth. And my Tante Annie, his wife, Uncle Sam's wife, she was Hungarian and a wonderful cook. And I remember I asked Mom to make this, and she did eventually. Bavarian cream, which is lemon jello with nuts, walnuts mixed in with it before it hardens, and whipped cream on top, and some pineapple slices. That is what a dish that is. One of the things I remember was that when we were kids in Jersey City, at a certain period of the year, Charlotte Russes would come out, and there'd be people selling them. Did they have Charlotte Russes in Philly?
Yes.
Yeah, they were little cupcakes in a cardboard cylinder and covered with whipped cream, and you could push them up. As you licked off the whipped cream, you could, as I recall, you could push it up. I may be having a bad recollection there, but that's what I recall.
I have another memory. My best friend Gladys Altschuler invited me to a Christmas party at Christmas time, 1939, and she told me two things. She told me her boyfriend would be there, and that she would supply the boys. So,
Boys or booze?
boys.
Boys?
No.
Oh.
So I walked in, and I saw Dad, and I thought to myself, boy, she has better taste than I thought she did, because her parents used to hate the boys she would bring home. And but Dad was with me all night, and Gladys was my best friend. So I said, aren't you Gladys's boyfriend? He said, no, we're step cousins. So I immediately,
Which was true.
I immediately got the picture. Since they were step cousins, they probably thought that families thought that they could get them together. So when I lived in the neighborhood, and Dad asked if he could take me home, and Gladys said, she broke up the party, and she said, we'll all take you home. And we went,
The car was very crowded.
and I
lap.
was sitting on Dad's lap. So Dad took me to the door, and he asked me if he could see me the next day.
Uh-huh.
And I explained that my cousin Sylvia Rabb was getting married. So I found out later, in fact, after I moved here, Dad told me he told Gladys
The next morning.
the next morning that he was in love, and she flooded her eyelashes.
Wow. I can't say she really did, but that's how it seemed. She was so
Yeah.
ready to hear something
Oh.
good.
So when he said with Charlotte,
When he finished the sentence,
yeah,
She said, "Oh, to who?"
and Dad said Charlotte, and she said, that's ridiculous. So, but she did say to Dad, and Dad asked her for my address, and she said, you have to wait a week. And if after a week you still want it, I'll send you her address, and she continues to be my best friend after that.
yeah.
And she
But-
did send me.
Yeah,
She did send it.
yes.
I said, yes, I still want it,
So,
and she sent it, and I corresponded with Mom and told her what an exciting evening that was, because I fell in love with her that night.
That's a
but,
great
so
story.
I had, and I saved a whole box of letters from Dad. And at some point, I guess Dad felt a little embarrassed, and he asked me to get rid of them. And I
Uh-huh.
did all but one.
Oh, really? Saved
All
one.
but one,
Yeah.
and that becomes part of our family history.
Yeah,
And someday I'll show it to you.
that would be great.
Yeah, and so I went to visit Grandma Ray. I think she was still sizing me up. In our family, to this day, we never asked prices. But she said, I had an umbrella. She said to me, if you don't mind my asking, how much was that umbrella? I
That
s-
was the most important thing. How much did you pay
Yeah.
for it?
Well, because she was still sizing me up.
Yeah.
So she wasn't sure. So I said $2.95. It was $16. And she said to me, nah, that has 15 ribs in it, Charlotte. That cost you $16.
She pegged it right.
Yeah, so,
That's funny.
and recently, Lyle and I were talking, and I said, I don't think your mother really liked me. And she said, oh, my mother loved you.
Is that right?
Yeah, she
And my
told me.
mother liked her very much, right as soon as she met her.
Yeah,
And she was so relieved because she didn't know what kind of a girl, a mother's and our sons, what
Yeah.
kind of a wife are they gonna bring?
no, see,
I wasn't.
I was determined, when I saw 4 boys, I made up my mind, because I've seen it happen over and over. The mother, the daughter-in-law, and the son. And the mother always loses, because the son goes with his wife, as it should be,
Yeah.
right? So I never had daughter-in-law trouble.
Yeah, that's true. Yep,
Yeah,
yeah. So you realized that
a long time
very
ago,
early on.
yeah.
And then
Yeah.
tell Howard what happened when I told my mother about you. About a week later,
Oh, you told your mother that you met a girl you were
I
in
met
love
a girl
with?
I'm in love with. She hadn't met you yet.
No, and what did she say?
Well, you were the one who.
Well, I don't remember.
Oh, to keep it, quiet.
It's not what she said to you. I had said, Ma, I found a girl, I love her, and I think I said it's the girl I'm going to marry,
I hope to marry someday,
something like that.
yeah.
And she immediately, I said, and don't tell anyone.
Oh, yeah, and she
So
told
it's the
all
first
the
thing she did as soon as I hung up is tell everybody that Bobby found a girl that he loves and
He's
he's probably
in
going
love
to
with,
marry.
yeah, he's in love
She
with.
kept a real good secret.
Well, women, what
Yeah.
else do women have to talk about?
Mhm.
But,
Yeah. What year was it that you got married in 1944?
44.
November.
And Bert,
Yeah.
see, Bert, I'll never forgive her. She said, I've never seen a house without cut glass. Believe me, that was the last thing that,
She
Grandma
was
Ray
saying that
had.
about my
Yeah, and
mother's house.
And that's what I said. Bert and Ray hated each other.
Yeah.
I think Ray hated Bert, really, because she snobbish. And then another thing that happened, Yola got married. My parents had the reception in her house. I invited this guy I was dating. I never had any intention to marry him, but I invited him. Before that, at the beginning of the week, I got a call from Dad. And Dad said, I have something very important to tell you, and I have to come up this Sunday to see you, which was the day Aunt Yola got married and
Oh.
reception. And
Yeah.
Dad walked, and first of all, this other guy got drunk. And my
The one that you had invited to the
yeah,
reception?
and in my family, they've never seen anyone drunk, you see.
And
Yeah.
he couldn't hold his liquor, I
And he,
remember.
yeah, he was slobbery, was a mess. And Dad walked in, Dad made a good impression anyway. And my 3 cousins, who were my father's nieces, they
Mhm.
were Mary, Emma, and I forgot the other one's name.
Frida?
No, not Frida. They said to me, dump that guy and go after this one.
So, did you go to the reception then, that day? Did you meet this
Leonard? Yeah,
Leonard?
yeah, and Dad
No, I was
walked in.
there at the, they had a party
Yeah.
at Mom's house.
See, I
So you
had
had
to
two-
invite Dad, but
What?
I already invited this other guy.
Yeah. But Dad ended up also showing up, right?
Oh, I saw the
I
guy.
invited him.
Oh,
I invited Dad.
you had two.
Imagine, and the other one got slobbering
Well,
drunk.
as I may have told you, as soon as I saw him, I felt a surge of confidence.
Oh, that's what Dad said to me. Yeah, he said, having met him, I have renewed confidence in myself.
It's not in myself, but about my chances with you.
Uh-huh. That's funny.
I-
Had your parents met Dad before, or was that the first time they met?
That was the first time.
First time.
Oh, that was the first time that your
My
family
father was
met.
crazy, always crazy about
Yeah,
Dad.
we got
Oh,
along
he
very
was
well.
crazy about him.
Long conversations.
My mother said, and I never forgave her, she said, had I known, because we moved to Dallas, she said, had I known that he would take you away from me, I never would have approved of the marriage. And
Oh.
that
Yeah.
that didn't hurt me, it bothered me.
Yeah, yeah. That was when you moved from Ohio to
No, that first move
Houston?
was from Philadelphia.
Oh, before you had any kids.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think we had kids.
No,
But-
we didn't have children.
Yeah, we did. So we had 4 boys, and I wanted a big family. I mean, big. And then I started to have miscarriages. So we decided better not fool around with Mother Nature. So I stopped with
They
you.
were probably she had 2 miscarriages, and they were probably the girls.
That's what I
Yeah.
decided.
I thought there were 3.
Well, there might have been 3.
I
I
thought
don't know.
there were 3.
Yeah.
One I had right out in the street.
Really?
Yeah, I was walking and I collapsed to the ground.
Oh, gee.
And the next thing I knew, I was in the emergency room at the hospital. And this doctor said to me, I have it here and here. Do you want to see what it looked like?
Ooh,
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah,
sure.
Unbelievable.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember in Houston, there was a miscarriage. I was about 3 or 4.
And I think Neil
And,
Birch came over, stay with, no.
I thought it was just the 4 of us.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember we were getting wire, electric wire, wrapping it around a pencil, taking the pencil out, and then we would act like it was an air tube for scuba diving. And we were kind of wallowing around the floor. And you had taken Mom to the hospital, and I remember Mom was kind of covered. You had like a robe around you as you went out. I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
The other miscarriage in Oklahoma, I was 8, and about a year before, maybe 2 years before the miscarriage, I remember a couple times, Mom, you had said, you know, I would love sometimes to just go to a hospital and relax in bed and have meals brought to me and sleep. That would be so nice. And then you were pregnant when I was 8, and when there was that miscarriage, you went to the hospital. No one had told me that it was a miscarriage, and I thought that, oh, well, Mom's dream is finally coming true. She's gonna just relax in the hospital for a couple days.
Oh, God.
And then it wasn't until weeks and weeks later
Oh,
you said to my friend Marty Martin's mother,
oh,
you had we were in you and her were friendly, and she
Yeah.
was also pregnant at the same time, and you told Mrs. Martin that you had an MC, and I figured, okay, I can figure out what that means, and then I realized
what
yeah,
does it mean?
miscarriage.
Oh, MC, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What is it?
So you were saying that you had one about moving to Dallas, and that you had always wanted a large family.
Yeah, I did,
Yeah,
yeah. I would have wanted more kids.
Yeah.
But with those miscarriages, Dad and I both decided, just,
Yeah.
that might have been a warning to not have any more.
Mhm.
Because if you have a child with the physical and mental,
Oh yeah.
that just brings the family down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, fortunately, we had 4 healthy ones.
Then,
We had 4 healthy
Yeah,
ones.
that's right.
the
Yeah.
2 other things, when Ralph was 4, he was making airplanes, and he got that from Dad, I remember. And he had 2 pieces of plywood, and I knew he wouldn't be able to get through the door. But I asked Ted Griner, because he was studying to be a psychiatrist. I says, that's really going to frustrate him. He said he knows he can't get that through the door. And the other thing was, remember Monkey? Neil had that
Oh
monkey.
yeah.
And he
The stuffed
throw-
animal.
Yeah, and he threw it around the room. And I said to Ted, I'm a little worried about that. I said, because I have a baby in the house. And Neil rides that horse like crazy, remember?
Oh yeah.
And then he'd throw the monkey around. She says, you have nothing to worry about so long as it's not his little brother.
Yeah. And then his monkey I had a stuffed monkey, and they would have wrestling matches, and of course Neil's stuffed animal would beat the hell out of mine.
Right.
And broke his arm.
Well,
You perform the surgery to.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
But he's a very gentle person now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he got it out of his system,
Yeah,
I
I
guess.
guess so. Yeah. But when we would
Remember the
walk-
punching bag? You got Neil a punching bag. Do you remember that thing? It was tall, and he would slug it.
Vaguely, yeah. But when we go to restaurants, because the kids, wore their little suits and that, when I say,
Yeah.
people would look at us.
Oh, yeah, they'd often come over and
Yeah, and this one man,
compliment us.
he was sitting at his table next to ours alone. And he kept looking at us the whole time, and he came over, and he said he wanted to pay our bill.
Is that right?
Yes, and I said, I hugged
And I
him.
was there,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wasn't
yeah.
there alone.
But I stood up and I shook my hand and embraced him. And I says, I can't let you do that, but I will never forget you.
And
Yeah.
she didn't.
And I did,
Yeah. That's right.
yeah.
I wonder if he knows
Yeah.
that.
They.
He might not be here anymore,
Yeah.
because he was so much older than me.
Yeah.
And people don't go out. I mean, if they take the kids out to a restaurant, they don't. The kids don't get dressed up nowadays to
No,
go.
well, it's
I mean,
different, it's more
yeah.
casual, yeah.
Yeah.
I understand
Everything
that.
was more formal then.
Yeah.
I remember looking at, when we had a medical, a lecture in the medical school, and I would sit in on the lectures in our department. And I'd look down this row of medical students, every single one of them had on a white shirt and a dark tie.
Jeez.
It was like uniforms.
Yeah.
They didn't have jackets, they didn't wear jackets, but
Hmm. Boy, how times have changed.
Yeah.
Now they wear jackets. If they're gonna dress up, no tie, kind of an open shirt, but a jacket. over
But
it.
that's all right, but I don't think values change.
they do wear jackets, let's see. When we
And
went
in
to
some
the-
cases, if they're
When
gonna
we
dress
went
up,
to
yeah.
to Enzo's, you wore a jacket, and I think I did.
You had a tie on, but no jacket.
I left it, that's right.
I had a jacket, but no tie.
I remember what happened. No, I'm thinking of something else. So
Ralph had a dress shirt, but no shirt and tie. Neil had a vest on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, you got some material today.
yeah.